Thank you for watching. I watched a Kent Hovind debate. I haven't watched one of those in a while. I think because it would be repetitious, or a lot of, Kent was making a lot of the same points in his videos. But I ended up with one on my watch later list, and this time, instead of carefully taking notes while the debate was going on, I tried to burn off this excessive belly that I have while the debate was going on with my exercise machine, and so it took the notes after. This was against Conspiracy Cats. It was this year, in January, that this was uploaded. Conspiracy Cats went first. He made a big deal about ERVs, androgynous retroviruses. He thinks those are absolute proof. There's something in our DNA that he believes, and a lot of other people believe, were put there by viruses a long time ago, but nobody saw the viruses being put there while it was happening. So this is all looking at our DNA now and, coming to conclusions about the past, which is historical science, if it's worthy to be called science at all. He claimed the geologic column is true. He disbelieves Kent Hovind's understanding of the layers of rocks, sedimentary rocks, and dirt that we have in the earth, because he claims the density of the dirt varies in the different layers, and if it were all caused in one flood, they would all be there would be a uniformity. Densest ones at the bottom, fluffiest, lightest, most porous sediment at the top. Kent Hovind never said that the weight of animals or the size of animals affects where they're sorted during the flood. But Conspiracy Cats made it sound like Kent had said that. Kent says the density of the animals is what affects where they ended up during the worldwide flood. And mobility and intelligence. Clams are going to be in the lowest rock layers because they're already at the bottom and they don't move much. He made a big deal about isochrome dating. He had a chart even with a straight line and another line that was straight and 3 dots on it, and he said that's how we can be certain that when we're doing radiometric dating of rocks, that the rocks are not contaminated, which was a weird thing for him to bring up, because usually radiometric dating proves a younger Earth than the old Earth, and the ones crying contamination are the evolutionists, and the theistic evolutionists, and the atheistic evolutionists. And I just repeated myself. He had some charts about what he thought the speciation rate would have to be if the Earth were young, and claimed it was impossible. But I'm confused. How many rabbits does he think there are on this Earth? There are not an extremely large number of rabbits, and that's one of the things he picked for an example. He claimed the Bible. He had some parts of this debate. He said he wasn't talking about religion or his beliefs, but he attacked the Bible's accuracy. Specifically, Solomon's temple had a big, huge thing for doing baptisms. I think that's what it's for. Definitely a molten laver, they call it. Basically a big tub. How big of a tub? Like 10 cubits across and 30 cubits around. Well, that's bad math. And it really should be 30, 3.14, etc. If you're going to be precise about how far around it is, if it's exactly 10 across. He claimed that polystrate fossil trees, were in swamps and not in Noah's flood. He denies Noah's flood happened. I call it Noah's flood because Noah was one on the earth at the time, but really God was the one behind the flood, the one responsible, the one whose power was doing it. Alright, and then Kent Hovind had his turn, and he pointed out the geologic column is found nowhere on the Earth. It's only in books. There's not a perfectly neat sorting of the fossil bones. He explained what his understanding is of the flood waters at the time of Noah and how they laid the layers down. He proved that we can't trust radiometric dating because he brought up a lot of examples where we know exactly how old rock is because the volcano erupted in a time period when we know about it. Somewhere as far back as 100 something BC, but it was 100 and something BC, near people who were recording it, and somewhere as recent as Mount St. Helens, the 1980s. And all of these rocks showed, when they were dated, showed very old dates. So if you can't trust something when you know the date, you can't trust it if you don't know the date, duh. Speciation. Kent Hovind explained about speciation. His answer to the accusation of not enough time for speciation to get all the animals here, one of his answers to that was the conspiracy cats and the evolutionists have a bigger problem. See, they're saying that all life has one common ancestor that spontaneously came to life from a rock. So, what's the bigger problem, or more unbelievable, improbable situation, is Kent's point? We have two animals getting off the ark about 4,000 or 4,400 years ago, and they spread out and make all the life on the earth, including speciation, which means it's still a rabbit, still a bear, still a bat, but it's changed enough that we now would call it a different species. Yeah, but what's more implausible, that or all life having a common ancestor, a rock becoming everything? The story that was used to discredit the Bible is in the Book of Kings and Chronicles, and Kent Hovind's answer is the brim of it was a big enough size that it actually was 30 around and 10 across, because if you're measuring the inside of the brim or the outside of the brim, that will affect things. Kent Hovind pointed out there are gravel seams all over the earth. Some are very big. A uniform, one layer of gravel that covers hundreds of miles, and they're very rounded off, and the flood is the best way to explain that. Then they had a chance to go back and forth and ask questions. Let's see. Kent's conspiracy cat brought up the androgynous retroviruses because Kent did not answer that issue. Kent said he doesn't know enough about that issue, but pointed out how absurd it is to think that how complex our DNA is. It's very complex. And little changes, to think that little changes could make random changes in DNA could actually build a whole new animal. He brought up the example of computer programs. If you randomly change some parts of a computer program, that's a big computer program, you're not going to create a new computer program. He gave a specific example of you're not going to randomly change a few parts of a Microsoft program and turn it into an Apple program. Let's see. So, Conspiracy Cats talked about a warbler that is a ring species around the Himalayan plateau, but they're all still Kent Hovind's response to that, and this fly, all still warblers. So it didn't change into a different kind of animal. The flies were, after 35 generations, not able to reproduce together, but they were still flies. Conspiracy cats misidentified Kent's definition of what a kind is. Kent's definition of a kind is they could bring forth together at the beginning when God created them. Kent's definition does leave room for things to not be able to reproduce together now. But they're still the same kind of animal if they are still a fly, a bird. And the warblers, they were not only still birds, in this one example where they weren't reproducing, and they, the extreme ends of the ring species, they were still warblers. They were still a small bird, well designed for flight, not well designed to run around. Okay. He claimed that if we know we have a closed system, then we can be sure about our testing of rocks, but the ones that Kent pointed out were not closed systems, but he never proved it. I'm still mystified about how he can be sure if we have a closed system or not. He denounced Kent's use of a toy to teach a principle. Now, some toys are useless for teaching principles, but Kent was making the point. You can get a toy that's glass with sand and water inside, and there's different color of sand, and when you turn it upside down, it makes multiple layers of sand. And Kent's point is that's how we have different layers in the middle of Noah's flood. That same thing was happening, just on a bigger scale. That is science. That toy, turning upside down and seeing what happens, that is actual science. That's a whole lot more scientific than some of the storytelling about the distant past that some people do. Or, Ken asked for an example, so conspiracy cats did not want Kent talking about anything other than evolution. And by that he meant don't talk about cosmic evolution or stellar evolution or chemical evolution or abiogenesis, despite those being called parts of evolution or evolution in some scientific textbooks and on some universities' websites. But conspiracy cats brought up stuff that has nothing to do with proving that the big changes that he believes have happened, and it's not just something he believes, but something scientific. Alright. They talked about the moths in England, and one thing conspiracy cats did not like was Kent pointing out that Kent was assuming that conspiracy cat was an atheist. And that's a reasonable assumption from somebody who was teaching, believing the atheist creation story. But conspiracy cats let us know we should not think he is an atheist. And those are all of my notes. Alright. There's two other things. So Kent Hovind knows what gene alleles are, but didn't think that fit the subject of the lesson tonight, of the debate that I was watching. Not tonight, it's an old debate. I watched it earlier today when it wasn't night. And, alright, thank you for watching this debate. Well, watching me talk about this debate. You have a good day. Thank you.